was on the part of Democrats. I felt it, you felt it, but we don't change anything. We have the same people in place in leadership, same people in place apparently at the RNC. Perhaps that's not changing. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I'm pissed tonight.
I can handle things. I'm smart.
We shall overcome. Yes, we can.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, good morning. Welcome to the show. It's What the Franklin with your affable and always eager to please host, Chip Franklin. Good to have you here. I don't say this a lot, but I had this show set up. Incredible show. And I still think it might happen. Right now, we're waiting for one of our first guests from the Washington Post, Devlin Barrett. Hopefully be here in just a second. And to talk a little bit about the latest from Mar-a-Lago. But while we're waiting for him, there's obviously good news that WNBA star Whitney, I don't have her name in front of me now, and I apologize. Griner won. Yes, thank you. And it's interesting when you look at some of the response from people like Donald Trump Jr. and others when they say this American-hating, what did he call her? An American-hating loser in a tweet. That was released and again, attacking Biden. I wonder now about the Republican Party and just how broken they are. We will get to that in a little bit. Obviously, there's some other interesting news too that to report. But before we get into that, coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to talk to a guy that, well, to be honest with you, scared me. He's a filmmaker, and he's created a documentary about our power grid after this substation was shot in North Carolina, and it knocked power out to about 100,000 people. You got to stay tuned for that. And that's in about 15 minutes. We'll get into that. And a little bit later on, comedian Bobby Slayton. If you don't know Bobby, you've seen Bobby 100 times. He's been in a lot of different films. He's known as a pitbull of comedy. He kind of retired from comedy, and which is interesting because we started at about the same time, but he's a legend among other comedians. And we'll get to him in just a couple minutes. Also, a little bit later on, we'll talk to Chris Merrill, who is an old friend of mine and a talk show host. And I'll try to bring in Nikki Maduro, who and Mark Thompson, both KGO alum like myself, and Chris is as well. And we're going to talk about the top 10 fall from graces. Think about that. The people that you knew who were just at the top of the world, and then like that, no more. I'll give you a hint. Number 10, O.J. Simpson. I got a real quick O.J. Simpson story for you. And so this goes back. My brother-in-law is in show business, and we all started at the same time, and he got a lot of success out in California. And my wife and I would go to visit him, and I got to play the Bel Air Country Club once, which is you don't just walk on to Bel Air, and it's a golf course. So I'm playing golf. So this is 1992, I think it was. And so we're playing, and the course, as you coming in, I'm coming in on the front nine. So if you're not a golfer, essentially what you do, you play the first nine, it brings you back to the clubhouse, and then you go out from there and you play the second nine, and then you come back to the clubhouse. They're designed, almost imagine the figure eight, something like that. So we're coming back in. I'm on number 8. So I see the group going out on number 2, and the guy I'm playing with, who was a friend of my brother-in-law, said, "You know who that is down there?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "That's O.J. Simpson." Now, this is before the murders, right? So O.J. Simpson's out there, and I see him. Oh, wow. And so it's I think number 2 is a par 5, which means that you hit a drive, and apparently he hit a good drive, and he comes up on the ball, and he hits it, but he hits it beneath the ball, hits it fat. So you see a lot of dirt, and the ball goes about 30 yards. And O.J. Simpson took his club and slammed it into the ground. Who hasn't done that? He continued to do it for about 90 seconds. Now, I'm not going to give you the full 90 seconds of what that feels like, but it was a long, long time. And I think the thing that got me the most, and that it really blew me away, was just watching him. We stood there and watched a guy pound his club into the ground. He created a divot. I swear to God, you could put a basketball in. And I watched that and I was like, that guy's got problems. Anyway, that's our Fall from Grace segment coming up. So one of the things I guess that I wanted to talk to you about here in the beginning of the show is a local story out of the Bay Area, which involves just a really sad subject, which is suicide. The Golden Gate Bridge, as you may or may not know, is a focal point for a lot of people who have committed suicide over the years, and they go there to jump, and it's horrible. When I first came to KGO Radio, which is in San Francisco, I came from San Diego, and we got up there, and in the newsroom, they would report when somebody committed suicide or jumped from the bridge, which is, I think, over 2,000 people have done it now. They would say that it was a police action. And I would say, well, why don't you just say what it is? It's suicide. And they go, no. If we talk about it, it encourages people. Well, we'll get to that story in a little bit later. The net they're trying to build now is going to cost. They're going to build a suicide net to protect people when they jump, and it's going to cost close to $500 million. And there's a lot of stories that come from that. So we'll have that story still to come in a little bit. He's here now, Devlin Barrett. He is the Washington Post writer who has writes about the FBI and the Justice Department. He's the author of October Surprise, how the FBI tried to save itself and crashed an election. He was part of a reporting team that won the Pulitzer in 2018 and 2022. And in 2017, he was co-finalist for the Pulitzer as well. He's been covering law enforcement for more than 20 years. He worked at the Wall Street Journal, the AP, New York Post, and he's nice enough to join us here on What the Franklin. Devlin, thank you, my friend. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Chip. Very sorry for being late.
That's okay. That's okay.
My
I knew
computer
you
and I weren't getting along this today.
There's a lot to talk about Mar-a-Lago, but I think at the heart of this is whether or not, I'm just going to ask you this question because I think it's important. It's perfunctory, but did the president have any kind of right at all to the documents, the latest documents found in a storage bin? Is that right?
Storage unit, yeah. Storage unit of private facility.
I read a report. Is there any doubt at all that what he did was illegal and dangerous to the security of the country? Or as many on the right are saying, he could declassify anything. And as Trump said, even in his own head.
So it is true that when he was president, Trump had incredible power to declassify what he wanted. I think the still unanswered question, and the answer that the Trump lawyers always duck, is, but did he declassify things? Did he declassify these things that were found? That's the core question. And they have never made an argument that there is any evidence other than, as you said, and Trump said at one point, in his own head. They have never made an argument that there is evidence showing he did declassify these things. And that's a real problem for them.
We've heard everything from nuclear secrets to, love letters from Kim Jong-un. Are we beginning to get a real understanding of what was taken and the significance of the departure from the safety and security of the White House? So
we've reported that among the most sensitive documents recovered from Mar-a-Lago were documents that describe Chinese-aimed intelligence gathering, meaning U.S. intelligence agencies' work trying to gather and conduct intelligence operations aimed at China. That's a very important target. Some of this stuff is so sensitive that only a cabinet level or essentially almost cabinet level official is allowed to authorize other people to look at this stuff. And we're told that one of the most sensitive documents involved Iran's missile program. So there is definitely, in this basket of more than 300 classified marked documents, there is some very, very sensitive stuff here.
I've heard that some of the stuff works like this, and it's almost comical, but say we found a piece of paper that said what Putin eats for lunch every day. People go, well, why is that sensitive? Well, of course, the question is, how do we ascertain that information? Is it some of this stuff like when on its surface looks innocuous, but then when you start to go down the rabbit hole, you realize, oh crap, this does really reveal possible intelligence gathering information, and and puts at risk the people who are gathering this for us?
So I think one of the ways to think about this is there's a wide range. I think if you say, I don't think it would be correct to say all of this stuff is the most sensitive stuff in the world, or all of this stuff is junk. I think even if you look at how this stuff was found, a lot of it's just jammed into boxes willy-nilly where there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to what's in there. I think it's fair to think of it as just a wide range of stuff. And so I do not doubt that within the 300 documents, there's going to be some stuff, and that is at the confidential level, which is the lowest level of classification, often includes, to be honest, the joke about confidential level. It's the stuff, it's one of the old government jokes about confidential levels. It's the stuff that's so boring, only the State Department even bothers to write it down. Yeah. So, there's going to be a range, I think. There is a range. But that doesn't mean that, the important stuff isn't important. But it also, to be fair, doesn't mean that the unimportant stuff isn't unimportant.
I mean, I got to include myself in this group of people that loathe the former president for a variety of reasons, and not just simply political, but that's part of it too. Are we exaggerating? I mean, you remember obviously Walker in the 80s and the espionage, sure. Right? And there's rumors that he compromised ongoing FBI activities that caused people to die in different parts of the world. And that's been right up there with Pollard and others. It's one of the greatest breaches we've ever had. Is this even in the same ballpark, or is this just simply a guy that had absolutely no respect whatsoever for the intelligence agencies and the certain that he's called the deep state and others, and they just felt like he could take these? I mean, obviously, who was going to stop him? And like the latest find here, is that are we going to continue to find these papers in different places? It's two questions.
So, that's a bunch of questions. I'll put it this way. We have reported that, as best investigators can tell so far, there's no evidence that he was trying to sell these things or leverage them into something that so for example, we know that investigators reviewed the material they recovered to see if there was any sort of obvious business advantage to this type of information. They looked at it and said, could this information just on its surface have just sale value in the world? And they don't really see that, although obviously all sensitive intelligence has at least some theoretical sale value. There's secrets and there's sellable secrets, and this doesn't feel like sellable secrets to them. And I think that's important. Their best understanding of motive right now is that this is about ego. This is about he wanted to hold on to some things, and just decided that's what he was going to do. That doesn't make it okay. The government prosecutes all the time intelligence officials who just are hoarders, essentially. And, that doesn't get him off the hook. But I do think it differentiates him so far from the evidence of the cases you talked about, which are basically spy cases.
When I look at people like Herschel Walker, one of the greatest fears I had that he just was incapable of the job. When I go back and I read Michael Lewis's book, The Fifth Risk, I don't know if you ever had a chance.
Yeah, great book, fantastic.
Yeah, great book. And I realized the greatest danger to Trump was simply his inadequacy and his inability to really understand the task he was taking. So is it possible that, in our fury of what Trump had done and the things that he, that led to the impeachments, and that this is really not quite as damaging? Is this even in the same ballpark as January 6th?
Oh, I think it depends greatly on where you sit and what matters most to you. I think if you talk to people in the intelligence community, the Mar-a-Lago thing is infuriating to a lot of them, and very, very frustrating, in part because they already know, based on his whole experience as president, a lot of the intelligence community people understand that Trump thought very little of them to begin with. And to them, it's another sign of how much disregard and dislike he frankly has for the very premise of intelligence work. And so I think for those folks, this is in some ways, just dreadful, because they know the rules and they know, well, if I ever did this, I would go to jail right away.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I think for the country writ large, I think it's fair to argue January 6th is a bigger problem writ large, but January 6th had a lot of participants. And Mar-a-Lago is really, at the end of the day, Mar-a-Lago is really about one person.
I think the thing about this that it's funny, when I was I lived in DC and I'd work in Baltimore, and I would drive past Fort Meade every day. And this is in the years after 9/11, the first couple of years. And this is anecdotal, but I laugh because it's the way our minds work.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I would drive past the Fort Meade exit, my phone would drop out. And this is back in the days of the little flip phones, right?
Sure.
And so I'd go on the air at WBAL in Baltimore. We have huge reach. And I would talk about it. And I'd say, I told the story. And this guy called up and he said, yeah, I used to work at Fort Meade. And he said, yeah, they jam stuff all the time. And they've been doing it for a while. And so we talked to this guy. Guy was great. He talked to me on the phone for like 20 minutes. He called himself Ed, I remember. And the crazy thing is my phone never did it again after that. Never dropped it. So, we try as best we can to deduce, what exactly is going on. And then, side of that is, as I look at these papers, so the latest papers and the story that's in the Post yesterday that you wrote is just a kind of this ongoing drip of this former president. And people can talk about him beginning to go away and, the turn. But the question is, was there damage done to our nation's security under his leadership? And if so, how bad?
So I think one, in the case proper, the Mar-a-Lago case specifically, we know there is a damage assessment being done. We don't know the outcome of that, but officials have signaled that that's not far off. That's weeks, probably weeks, not months away. But the truth is, we don't know what that assessment will ultimately come down on. I think when you talk about Trump's relationship writ large with the intelligence community, Trump's relationship writ large with national security, I think most national security experts would say Trump was a very difficult president for the issues they care about. Trump made a lot of things that should have been relatively easy for the United States to try to accomplish in the national security space much harder. But these are all competing interests within the government. Just today, you saw, the Brittany Griner hostage swap. And even within that, which I think most Americans would say it's good that she's home, or going to be home any minute, I guess. Even within that, there are competing arguments of what is actually most in the United States' interest in terms of these types of issues. So some of these are hard questions, but I think part of what drove the intelligence agencies so crazy about Trump is that he often boiled things down to what they felt were like nonsensical binary things that didn't reflect reality.
I guess the last thing I have on this is I go back to when then President Trump had Russians in the White House and was talking to them, and everybody was saying, "Oh my God, he could be giving away secrets." And I go, "Well, but no, everybody can see it. Would he do it in the light of day? Would he do it in front of everybody?" And my gut and my guess is in the next decade, as we look back on this, is that Trump was not this Machiavellian sort of figure, that he was exactly as advertised, and that the damage that he could have done, he didn't do, mostly because I don't think that's what was his interest ever. The idea of selling documents to foreign powers sounds simple, but it's not like you just go on Craigslist and do it. There'd have to be a host of people. And I don't see, obviously the people that came in and out of his sphere, from John Kelly to Tillerson and others, they're not part of that. And his son's meeting with a Russian at Trump Tower, that didn't make any sense either. I mean, is it possible, as we go through these papers that he took, that we just had a guy that did it because he thought he could, and that was the substance of it in the end?
Yes, and that's one of the working theories of investigators, is that, like I said, this was about ego, and he viewed these things not so much as things of value necessarily, as almost emotional attachments, trophies, mementos, like an old T-shirt, or like a nap. Like they're in some of with these documents, it's literally napkins in some cases.
Yeah.
Like it's not a system by as far as anyone can tell.
Yeah. Devlin, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Great work. Keep those Pulitzers coming, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Chip. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Again, Devlin Barrett for the Washington Post, Pulitzer Prize winner. Great stuff. Read him in the Washington Post. Devlin, not Devin, as I sent him an earlier message. Is, hey, I'm Chip. How many times have I got Skip or whatever? All right. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we're going to be joined by Bobby Slayton. This is, I love doing this live for you guys. Live TV I did talk radio for close to 30 years, and it's a different animal. I'm waiting for a guest right now who is not with us, but is a director and has put together, produced a documentary on our grid, power grid. We know the story or maybe we don't know yet the full story of the electricity substation in North Carolina that blacked out somewhere between 40 and 70,000 people. It was about an hour east of Charlotte, North Carolina, one of the nation's largest and most important cities, especially in the South. And when I think about these issues that we deal with now, he mentioned Brittany Griner a minute ago, and the way that way we have these back channels and all, and we worry about nuclear war. I don't know if you guys are aware of just how vulnerable our power grid really is. I want to play you a little bit from this documentary because it was a mind-numbing thing for me to see. Watch this.
There's a weird calmness about this hearing. This is not calm. The Russians are already in the grid. This is not a threat. This is happening. We are under attack. We are in a very dangerous place. I just think this has to be an emergency, an urgent situation.
John Wellinghoff was chairman of FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Wellinghoff commissioned a study to see if a physical attack on critical transformers could trigger cascading blackouts.
It was actually a very shocking result to us that there's very few number of substations you need to take out in the entire United States to knock out the entire grid.
Knock out the entire grid?
That's correct.
How many would it take to knock out putting the entire country in a blackout?
Less than 20.
Wow. That's a mind blower. Anyway, the documentary is out. Again, the Texas filmmaker's name is David Tice. He was due to be with us here a second ago, and he's not, and I apologize for that. But I went through this documentary, and the idea of the power grid and that 20 could take it out. If you remember, after 9/11, we went through all these scenarios, right? I mean, we were all totally freaked out. I remember one of the ones was people poisoning reservoirs, and if you recall, at the time of 9/11, I was living in a town called Kensington, Maryland, which is right outside of DC. Literally, I was off Connecticut Avenue, which takes you right downtown. It was 7 miles up Connecticut Avenue was where my home was. And right in my neighborhood is where the snipers started. About the first shooting, it was at a Shell gas station about a half a mile from my home. And it shut down the DC area. If you're watching this and you were living there at the time, you know how insane this was and how frightening it was. But it was just the beginning of this sense of vulnerability that Americans have, and we've had for a long time. And I think one of the things that strikes me as I think about this power grid is that continued vulnerability and why there's absolutely no upside for politicians to take this on because of the tremendous lack of security we have at these power stations. So these two goobers in North Carolina, they went up to the gate, they took their truck, and they know it's a truck because it left behind it, and they knocked down the gate. They drove right through it. They went in with their guns and started shooting at sensitive areas of it. How do they know? We don't know. They could have been goobers, but they knocked power out. So if you're talking about 20 major substations in the country and you can knock out power for the entire United States, I mean, a million things come into play. You got airplanes in the air, right? You have medical, you have government facilities, you have defense facilities. Would that be the first attack? Would be part of it. I mean, we watch television now, right? If you live in the Bay Area, where I did for a long time, or anywhere really in the country where they sell these generators, these gasoline power generators, and you start thinking about, what am I going to do to protect myself in an event like this? It's a fair question. right? What are you going to do to if the power does go out? I mean, we live in a world where we don't even think about these things, right? It doesn't even come to mind that this could happen. But these are the things that we went to after 9/11. The other one was I was working at this radio station in Baltimore, WBAL, and somebody started sending anthrax to people. And we would go down and open our mail with plastic gloves. So it was one of those. Remember they sent them. They sent them to NBC in New York, and whoever did that. And where I was working in Baltimore was about 40 minutes away from a place called Fort Detrick. Fort Detrick is a facility that may or may not have 5 or 6 different levels. It's a top secret facility where we experiment with biowarfare. So the idea during this pandemic that this thing could have been even crazier is a mind blower, right? The idea that this could have happened to us. So watching this documentary, which was good, it was well done, and it had everybody from President Obama to Newt Gingrich talking about it. It got you thinking. If you remember that period of time in your life and just how insane it was and the things we worried about after 9/11, when was the last time you thought of those things, right? When was the last time you thought of the possibility of our power, being knocked out across the nation, or in just New York City or San Francisco? How hard would it be? Or our water, or our, we talk about the possibility of trying to deal with a bioterror attack. Anyway, I don't mean to freak you out, but this was a great documentary. And let me see, the name of the documentary is Power. Pretty simple. All right. Coming up in about 20 minutes, I'm really excited to get Chris Merrill back on the show. And then we'll be joined by Nikki and Mark Thompson. And we'll talk a little bit about what I think is hilarious, which is it's not hilarious. It's kind of sad, but the top 10 people who have fallen from grace and what that means. And that kind of plays into what I wanted to talk to you about with our next guest. Bobby Slayton is more than just a comedian. You've seen him everywhere. He's had scene-stealing roles in movies like Get Shorty, Ed Wood, Bandits, Dreamgirls. But he started out as a comedian, and a very, very funny comedian. I'll tell you, the first time I ever saw him, this was sometime in the real early 80s. And a guy named Rich Hall, who you might remember from Saturday Night Live, is a friend of mine. And he said, I'm going to take you to see this guy because this dude has serious balls. And he did. He was like, if I don't want to compare him to anybody. It was really interesting. And when I hear someone say to me today, they want to do stand-up comedy, my first response is usually don't. It'll never be the same. But if that same person tells me to go F myself, then I think you might have a chance. And I guess the question is about this woke, whether or not we actually live in a woke culture. Maybe we're just a little oversensitive. But that's why I wanted you to meet this guy. And believe me, a lot of people know who he is.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Leno. Welcome to the Bobby Slayton Show. Bobby Slayton had a huge influence on my career.
Bobby Slayton, he's great. He's a very funny guy. He talks like this. Hey, you know what I'm saying? This guy want to come in and say, and you can't understand him. You got to go see him twice, which is kind of tricky.
People say that Bobby Slayton gets cheap laughs by attacking the audience, but look, he doesn't physically attack anybody. All he does is publicly humiliate women and minorities. That's it.
Bobby Slayton, talking about Yid Vicious, right? Jackie Mason and Shelley Winters had a kid. That was it. Came out of his mother going, that's it, I'm out of here. It's crazy.
Why the hell? It goes on and on and on. I don't want to keep him waiting because I know he hates doing these interviews. Bobby, good to see you, my friend. It's been a long time. How are you doing, by the way? Nope, you got unmute your mic. Your mic is muted. Oh my God, that would be the worst.
Okay, there. We on?
Yeah, we're on, my friend.
Okay,
yeah.
This is why I hate doing these things. I never. There's always a problem with my mic. There's always a problem with the lighting in my house. There's always a.
You look great. Stop it.
Once I got Skype figured out, and it took me forever, then Zoom came along. Once I got Zoom, then somebody else came along. Now you go, oh, this is just like Zoom. It's just none of these things ever seem to work out for me. And then if it doesn't work, I got your instructions. Unplug it from your iPad, plug an Ethernet cord. I don't know what the F. I don't know what any of that stuff is. But more importantly, it's good to see you. And the other reason I hate doing these things is because, when I used to do morning radio, you could go in your pajamas. Now that people see you, you got to get all dressed up like you're serious and important now. And
dude, I'm in my underwear. You guys can't see down there.
See that's the Chip Franklin I remember. The guy who was almost funny, not quite, but you're on the verge, on the cusp of being hilarious. Keep the tie on and keep it serious. But anyway, it's funny. In the last couple of years, once COVID started, everybody started doing, all these podcasts, all these comedians, and they would call me up and go, Bobby, you want to do my podcast? And I would do, I do a bunch of them. And then I realized I have nothing to plug, no gig to plug. I didn't write a book, so I stopped doing them. And I can't tell you how many people have called me in the last year with the same subject that you called me about. And I said, well, Chip's an old friend of mine. I'm getting sick of talking about the woke culture. I don't really care about it anymore. And as soon as I hung up the phone from you, I said, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I go, okay, I made the commitment.
All right, I got to tell you a couple of Bobby Slayton stories that you don't know. Okay, so
I don't know. People tell me stories and they're not all true, but go ahead.
I'm at a college in St. Louis, and I go over the funny bone because Frankie.
Oh my God! Hold on a second. I shut my phone off and it's still ringing.
Don't worry about it. Nobody cares.
But I should. Okay.
So anyway, I go over to see Frankie Bastille, right?
Oh my God! Hold on. Let me shut my phone off. Sorry. Oh my God!
They're watching you right now. They're calling you, saying, "Hey, I see you on TV, Bobby."
I went out of my way to shut my phone. If this phone never rings, and I knew it's only when I do a podcast or an interview that phone rings and it's spam. I'm sorry. So you're in college in St. Louis. Sorry about that.
No, anyway, so I went over to the Funny Bone to see Frankie Bastille. And so we were talking about you. And I don't know how it came up. He was talking about one of your jokes. And while he's talking about you, he takes out a needle and wraps and he starts to shoot heroin while and I go, and he sees my face and he goes, what, you don't like Slayton?
And is that true story?
That's a totally true story.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, I think though that I want to talk about this because I was when Chappelle was talking about trans in the closer, right? And it bothers me because I know a lot of LGBTQ people and I know that their life is hard as hell, right? It's tough.
Right. Oh God. Oh my God. Shut up. Oh my God. I'm unplugging my phone. I'm sorry. Oh my God. Stop. All right. Oh, I can't believe this goddamn thing. Hold on, Chip.
This is not fake. This is Bobby Slayton.
My
this
phone never rings.
Encapsulated
okay,
right
the trans
here.
people, life is hard. I'm sorry. Okay, we're done. Okay, go on.
Anyway, by the way, my son, before I get to that story, and I want to get to that story about Dave Chappelle. So I told my son about you because he helps with some of the social media here. Smart kid. And he hadn't heard of you, right? And I go, well, he's 32, so I get it, right? So
yeah, welcome to the club.
He went online and he saw your stuff and he came back. He goes, Dad, this guy's great. So anyway, so he loves you now. And my kids grew up on Bill Hicks records, right?
Bill Hicks used to open up for me, and when he was 17 years old, I said, this kid, 17 or 18, and then I started to interrupt me. But Chappelle too, he came to Montreal. We were doing something called the Jewish Show, and Chappelle was very funny. I think he was like 17 or 18, and then he did a guest set. And with all these old Jews, white people, and even at that age, this guy's destined for greatness.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of because he started in D.C. at Garvin's, where I started too, and it was pretty amazing. But I think so. Anyway, it bothered me what Chappelle said. I understand comedy. I understand that we all go out there and sometimes we go too far. But here's the crazy part about it, Bobby. So I was it was during the pandemic, but right at the end, and he was going to be doing a show at the Punchline right there on Battery.
Right.
And so I was doing my show from San Diego remotely, but I come up occasionally. So I got off on the BART and I'm walking up Battery, and who do I see coming the other way but Chappelle and a couple of his friends. So we stop and we talk about people like the Fat Doctor and these other people from DC who have died, and people, and I was kind of filling them in on the DC scene and stuff. And the whole time I'm talking to him, I'm going, I really like this guy. I remember how much I liked him when he was a kid. I saw him when he was 14 going on stage. So
really, wow.
Yeah. So it makes me think, that there's more that as a comedian, as somebody that really cares about, sending messages out there that are not just funny, but make people think about it as they go home. And I know that sounds, self-aggrandizing, but I think that there's something to that. the people, the reason I think people liked you is that they knew that you're not going to sit up there and think about whether or not I should say it. You've already done that, and you're coming in. And I mean, when you look at this today and you hear Seinfeld and Chris Rock and others talking about they don't want to do colleges anymore, my gut is that you would say, well, screw them. I'm going to do the college. If they don't like it, F them. But
well, first of all, when Seinfeld made that comment,
your mic just went south. I don't know.
Again?
Yeah. I mean, it's all crackly. No, I can hear you, but it's crackly. So,
well, is it okay now?
Now, I try talking again.
Is it okay now?
It's like a one-nighter in Rochester. This is what this show's like, Bobby. So,
yeah, but
right,
is the mic okay?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
It sucks that your mic works and my mic has a problem when I'm the one that really has.
Well, that's because I'm a professional, Bobby. I think that's
true. That's why I never like doing these things, because something always goes wrong. And it's a new iPad and it's a new headphones, new everything. I still can't get it right.
Well, it's probably not plugged in correctly or something like that, right?
Hold on. Everything's plugged in beautifully. Okay. Is it good?
Yeah, you'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah, but anyway, I mean, I know that you're not out doing this anymore. You don't go out on the road anymore, and you're semi-retired. You've had an incredible career, but I still think there's things that people would like to hear from you. I don't know why.
Well, you know what? I'm semi-retired for many reasons. One is that, when COVID hit, everybody was semi-retired or retired. Right. And I didn't really want to do a show on an iPad. It's hard enough to get people to laugh, and people like you going, your mic's going in and out. It's crackly.
Exactly. And it is.
I didn't want to do it at a drive-in theater with people honking their horns because you can't hear them laughing. I didn't want to. I didn't want to go to a club where people are wearing masks. And on top of all that, when COVID was over, there were there's so many more comics now, or alleged comics, supposed comics, wannabe comics, that are working really inexpensively or have 1 million viewers on Twitter, 1 million listeners on their podcast. I'm never a big social media guy. So when COVID was over, there were so many comics that wanted to go back to the clubs. And even guys like Bill Burr and Bill Maher and Dave Chappelle, guys who were playing theaters, were going back to the clubs so they could work on their stuff before going back into the... So the field was, it was too many people, You know
what I think? I feel like this, though. I mean, when I go back out there, I think to myself, I don't want to take stage time away from some 20-year-old who's been waiting for 4 hours to get on stage. If it's and in many cases, there's a lot of really good young comedians. And
yes, there are, but there's also, for every good one, there's 5 horrible ones.
Oh, there's 50 horrible ones.
Okay, and it was like that when I was younger. But in the 70s and 80s, when I was coming up, somebody said, "Oh, there are like 1,000 comics." I go, well, where are the 1,000 comics? No. And then one time I went to the Funny Bone in Columbus, Ohio. And a lot of times, the opening act would also come from LA or New York or San Francisco or Chicago. And I'd say to them, who's opening the show? And they said, a local guy. I go, it's Columbus, Ohio. You have a local guy? They go, we have 20 or 30 local guys. And I'm thinking, well, if Columbus, Ohio is 20, 30 local guys, doesn't mean they're good. But if they're good enough to make a couple of $100 and open up for me and do 15 minutes, that means in Cleveland, Ohio, and Toledo, Ohio, and so every city in America, if, like I said, Columbus can have 20 comics, and God knows how many comics. San Francisco has 40 or 50 comics. So there were so many people doing it then, and now I think it's even more because of Twitter, because of TikTok, because a lot of people, got the template of how to do comedy. Like when I started, I watched, the Ed Sullivan Show, and I watched Merv Griffin. I watched all these guys. And then when I moved down to LA, I went to the Comedy Store. I'd see David Letterman and Jay Leno, who were only a couple of years before me, but they showed me how to do it. Not that I was copying them or imitating them, but, you have to learn from other people. The Beatles and Stones.
Know that Leno is an amazing comic. When he was...
I'm well aware of that. I mean, he's one of the
he was mean.
People don't know that.
He had the Bobby Slayton thing before Bobby Slayton. He was mean.
Oh, no, he was... When I would watch Leno on Letterman, and Letterman would go, hey, Jay, what's your beef? I would, I would come home after doing a show, and I turn on the Letterman show, and I think, okay, I had a really great show tonight. And I watched Jay on that 10 minutes. He was a sharpshooter. There was, it was like Jerry Seinfeld. Every word meant something. There was no wasted space. And I would watch him go, I really suck, I watch Bill Burr now when I say the same thing. I think Bill Burr is not only the best comic working today, I think he's one of the best comics of all time. I think he follows in the footsteps of Lenny Bruce and George Carlin. But again,
hold on. I'm going to talk about that. I had Bill on the show when we were talking about this woke thing, and he says, and I really like what he had to say. He said, you know what? If you said something really shitty 8 years ago in a tweet, but since then you haven't said anything, what are people focusing on eight years ago? I mean, it's just, to me, this idea of going back and trying to find something wrong. I mean, the truth is now with the internet, and you know this as well as most people that make a living speaking, is that we're going to be judged by the worst thing we've said and worst thing we've done in life.
It's awful.
It is, right? And it sucks because we all get better. We all change. I mean, I'm not saying that, I should go back and say that it's okay that Marge Schott should say that the trains ran on time when defending Hitler or Kanye. Right. But, some of the things, I mean, but I guess one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, other than just to see your lovely face and to hear your voice, because when I saw you on stage, I realized I have to learn how to talk to crowds better, because I was just writing these jokes. And if it didn't go great, somebody said something to me and I went home and I wrote like 40 comebacks for people. And
well, you know what? Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I'll forget what you're talking about if I wait. I want to talk to you before my mic goes out again. You know what, though? I was always pretty good at that. But again, there's guys like Leno and Seinfeld, especially Seinfeld, who never talk to the audience.
No.
Jerry, if he gets heckled, he doesn't really have anything. But he's not that kind of a comic. Jerry Seinfeld is one of the best comics I've ever seen, but you can't compare me to this guy, to that guy. We're all different. It's like a band,
Yeah. Well, when I started out in like 1980, 81, I was a musician at Garvin's in between the comics playing piano. Right. And I met these guys. And Rich Hall kind of took me under his wing and said, you're funnier than these guys. And, we're getting paid $50 and you're here 7 hours getting paid $50. You should think about this. Get rid of the piano and put yourself out there. That's easy to say. And right. everybody, I don't know who your mentor was, but I mean, it was him or, who else looked out after me? Maury Amsterdam. I did a thing at Grossinger's and he came up to me and we sat for like 5 hours. For people who don't remember, he was Buddy on.
Oh, he's great. I love
Dick Van Dyke Show. Yeah, great guy.
I'm glad you got to go to Grossinger's. I know a lot of East Coast comics of our generation would go to Grossinger's when they try to bring back that Borscht Belt, not the Borscht Belt comedy, but when they try to bring comedy back in the 70s. I was already out in the Bay Area. So, I didn't really get to play up there, but I know that Seinfeld and all the New York and I guess Washington guys would go up there. And but I did spend a lot of time talking to the old farts. I had lunch with Jan Murray. I had many lunches with Milton Berle at the Friars Club. They always try to give you advice, but the advice wasn't really. Some of it was good, but a lot of it was you came from a different area, you're doing different kind of comedy. It doesn't really apply. It's like a painter trying to give another painter advice when you're not doing the same kind of painting. Just because you're a painter, just because you're a comic. As an actor, you might be able to give another actor advice, but comedy is so singular and so we're all so different that the only advice I ever got from Jerry Seinfeld, from Jay Leno, from Milton Berle, every single one of them said to me, "Don't be so dirty and slow down."
Yeah.
And then I had
slow down is incredibly important. Yeah.
But I had lunch with Buddy Hackett one day at Nate Now's in Beverly Hills, and Buddy said, "F him, just do what you do," because Buddy was filthy and funny. So you take all the advice, let it soak in, and take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, to get to, I guess, to wrap up here is that the word woke. I don't even know what it means anymore. I know that.
Neither do I.
I like to punch up. I like to go after people at strength, and I don't want to go after the weak people. Because their life is shitty enough, right? Yeah. I want to go after people who are sticking it to others and try to bring them down a notch. That's my goal when I do it.
Yeah, I had no problem with what Dave Chappelle did with the whole transgender thing. I thought it was very funny, and I think you mentioned it, but I think that most transgender people either didn't care or found it very funny. But there's and again, I'm not transgender, and I don't know any transgender people. If I was, maybe I'd be offended, so I can't speak for them. But at the same time, I think that there's a few people that are so vocal, and because of Twitter, because of the internet, which is also a good thing. It goes back to Rodney King. That person didn't have a camera phone, we never would have heard from Rodney King.
No. But you ever hear the story about that real quick?
Dave Chappelle.
Do you ever hear the story? That guy bought that camera. Oh, this is a great story, real quick, to throw in there, because you said that the guy that bought that camera came home and his wife was screaming at him to return it. We don't have the money for that. And he couldn't find the receipt. So he had to keep it. 2 nights later, he's out and he sees King getting his ass kicked, takes it out, films the thing, right? And then, of course, the rest is history. Jump ahead 5 years later. That guy with the camera, his life's gone to shit. He's divorced. He pulls up at a gas station. He's filling his gas tank up. A Porsche pulls up. Rodney King gets out of the car. This guy's pumping his gas. They're both meet each other for the first time at a gas station, putting it together. And of course, King's dead now. And I forgot what happened to that guy, but it's amazing. how fame and the things that come out of that don't always work out the way you think they are.
I thought you were going to say Rodney King gave a lot of money for saving his ass, but I guess no.
Should have. No, that would have been the movie.
That's what Rodney King should have done.
All right,
Anyway, look,
here's what I got you doing. I got you on the air, so I'm going to call you back and get you back again.
I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about the book. I'm sorry about my phone never rings in here. And of course, it was a telemarketer trying to buy my house or something, or I don't know what they wanted. But then I had my phone on mute. I go in case it rings, and of course it did. By the way, I know you have to go, but let me tell you something. Our old friend Mark Thompson, said, I hear you're going to be on Chip Franklin's show, so now you have to do my Christmas show again. And see what's happened here? Because I did your show. Now I got to do Thompson's show. Somebody's going to hear me on Thompson's show, and I have to do my show, and this whole goddamn thing's going to snowball.
Slayton, here's the deal. You're not the prick you advertise. You're a great guy. And
I wish I had something to plug except for my Skechers commercials, the best shoes ever. I got to tell the Skechers guy, can somebody still watch this now if they want?
Yes, it's go to whatthefranklin.com. It'll be up as soon as we're done.
Because I always tell Skechers, I'll give them a plug because they hired me to do all their commercials, and they're the best sneakers ever. That's all I'm not working the clubs. I got to make a living doing something, and I love those guys.
You rock, my friend. Stay safe and stay well, will you, buddy?
Listen to me on Mark Thompson's show. It'll be better. There'll be no phones ringing, I promise.
He'll be on here in about 10 minutes, and we'll talk about you, okay?
All right.
All right,
buddy. Talk to you later.
Take care. All right.
Okay, pal.
Again, the legend, Bobby Slayton, BobbySlayton.com. Check it all out. Just a great guy. All right, so it's time now. I advertised this earlier, and I think this is great. The top 10 falls from grace. The 10 people that were on the top, and the next thing you know, their whole life was gone. And who better to bring on than somebody that's experienced that himself? And that would be Chris Merrill, Merrill, the voice of Merrill.com. Hello, sir. Oh, your mic's not working.
Bottom happens because I don't know how to turn on a microphone. That's
okay.
That's the downer here. Hey, by the way, great job with Bobby. It was wonderful hearing from him.
Yeah.
He's right.
But your mic sucks. Hold on. Your mic is breaking up. Your mic is breaking up.
The mic is fine. It's my internet that sucks. Look where I'm broadcasting.
Here's Nikki Medora. Nikki, hey!
Stop talking. Do I sound clear?
You sound fine.
Of course I do. Of course.
So it's let her do the show.
Hi, Chris. Oh my God, some professionals over here. My God.
I'm telling you, right? It's one of those days where
we're talking about falls from grace. I mean, obviously Bobby Slayton, Chris Merrill. I mean, I'm still doing well, but obviously.
Well, that's always great to hear. So let's, before we get, to me, it's always been, gonna win. Stop. To me, it's always been a part of American culture to celebrate knocking down somebody from the top, right? I mean, that's always been that way. By the way, Nikki Medora's show kicks in today at 12. You can see her. She has a big show. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Chris Merrill's show is happening right now, and his mic's not helping him, and he has.
The mic is fine.
What is actually behind you? Turn off the turn off the green screen. Let me see what's actually behind you. Can you do that?
I don't even know how to turn off.
It's naked people behind him.
Yeah. Say, is there a porn set going on? Are you a fluffer? Is that what's going on? What's happening here?
Yeah, boy, my lips chapped.
All right, let's go down it. So before we run out of time, we have a little bit of time. So I came up with my list, and you helped me a little bit yesterday. But my good friend Amy and I were talking about this. It's 10 people, the top 10 people who have fallen from grace. And let's start with number 10, obviously, O.J. Simpson. I told this story in the beginning of the show. I saw him at Bel Air Country Club 2 years before the infamous murder. And he'd hit a bad shot, and he took his 7-iron and banged it into the ground for like 90 seconds. Not like dang, 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 which one any of us could do. He kept going for almost, and there was like a crater there. And I was like, that's one sick dude, man. That's something wrong there.
Jeez.
So if you think of any others, I leave out as we go through the list. And before I tell you number 1, number 9 is the guy that is the hold on here. We have hang on here. I'm going to throw a guest in here. David. Hi.
I'm so sorry to be late.
Oh yeah, it's all over though. We did it about 40 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's all right. Can I get you on? Can we do it again tomorrow? Can I get you on tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, David.
No, and I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it. He was.
Don't worry about it. Bye.
This is live. We did live radio together. All of us have done it together at some portion. Chris and Nikki and I, and it happens. Sometimes
absolutely.
people. But that guy has an amazing story, and it's about the power grid. He did a movie, and it's an amazing film. I watched the long trailer part of it about how terrorists could take down our power grid. It's based on that North Carolina thing. Mind blower. So we're going to do it on the show tomorrow. He's nice enough to agree to come on tomorrow. We'll get to more of that. All right, number 9, top 10 fall from grace. Jared, the Subway guy.
Oh yeah, I haven't thought of that guy in forever.
Jared, if you don't remember, was the guy that lost all the weight, was eating Subway
and lost his freedom.
Yeah, and then he was like, fooling around with kids.
I know. What is it? I mean, I just think there's more perverts out there than we like to admit, and fame isn't enough for people to get their act together and not be disgusting human beings. Obviously.
For the record, Trump's not on this list because Trump was always damaged, right?
Well, and he hasn't fallen from grace yet. People still love him, and he's a free man, and he's living it up in Mar-a-Lago. There's no fall from grace from him.
Fair enough.
Especially in his mind.
Fair enough. The other would be number 8 is Avenatti.
Yeah.
Right? Remember, you and I were covering him on the air. Remember, Karen, our board op, had such an amazing crush on him.
I mean, he's not a bad looking dude, but what did he get? 14 years, something like that?
Well, that phrase, he's not a bad looking dude for a guy going into federal prison. That's
not good news. Yeah, that's not good. That's not a good
Although I hate talking about prison rape because that's what Trump did when he wanted journalists to go be
But it happens. I mean, it's not like it's a well-known non-secret.
I've been in jail twice. And
Oh, Chris's mic sounds much better now.
Okay, Mr. Merrill. All right.
Do you agree?
Unbelievable.
Okay. Do you agree so far with my three?
OJ, I would have put him below the other two though, because Avenatti wasn't as high up. I mean, he was famous for being a lawyer. That's like being the world's best used car salesman.
No, but everybody loved. Remember, they were talking about.
People were taking pictures with him. He was going to run for president. Yeah. I mean, he thought he was higher. Maybe he wasn't as high, though.
I get it. Right. There wasn't a major U.S. company ad campaign that was all around him like there was with Jared from Subway, right?
Okay,
the guy wasn't a Heisman Trophy winner like there was with OJ, or a world-class athlete that everybody respected.
By the way, if you have a comment on here, I'd love to hear. I'm looking over here. Oh, look, I love this. Read this.
No more fake background for you. No, it's messing up your microphone.
Yeah.
Avenatti was scum from start. So maybe Kristen,
probably.
Right. Yeah. On my list, by the way, there's only one woman. So
naturally. Hopefully it's not.
All right. So number 7, Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But he's always been scum. Everybody knew that he was scum. Everyone knew that he was the scum of the earth. And they just sat next
You're talking about me again? Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've kept it secret, but
Mark,
about time everybody know. Yeah.
You did you get the shout out from Bobby Slayton?
No, I saw that he was on, and I tried to watch it. I'm scrambling here, Chip. You don't get it. This right before we go on with Chris. You can relate to this, I think. Yeah, I'm a scrambler. So the last second. So I was running in to hear Slayton, and I spilled a huge pint of half and half. It's not half and half because we're obnoxious vegans here in this house, but of the equivalent of half and half. It looks like half and half all over the kitchen floor. So that's a long, thorough way, Your Honor, of saying no. I did not hear Slayton, but he's the best. He's the very best.
So number 7, Harvey Weinstein, fall from grace, top 10 fall from grace. Would we all agree at Weinstein?
Yes.
Maybe he could have gone even lower.
Even higher.
Yeah, higher or lower. Number 6, Roman Polanski.
I
mean, this guy.
I'd put Weinstein above Polanski, but okay,
too. But I think it's because Polanski has been like such scum for so long.
That's right. Yeah. Nikki's right. It's been a long time.
Yeah, and he raped a 13-year-old girl by giving her Quaaludes and had sex in her butt because he didn't want her to get pregnant. I mean, he was bad on a level.
No, well, you're going to rate what they did also. I talk about rating the fall is what I was looking at. But you're right. That's just it's gruesome. It's awful.
All right, and this number 5 is somebody I think that a lot of people would forget. This guy's a brilliant politician. And he, I think, would have been a U.S. senator and maybe even conceivably at some point a presidential candidate. I'm not kidding. Anthony Weiner.
Oh, my God, yes.
No way.
He was a brilliant, charismatic guy, yes.
No, I mean, I think he had a fall from grace, but not
no, he had more than a fall from grace. It was his laptop that led to the Comey announcement.
He couldn't stop. He was his own worst enemy.
Yes.
He was the worst enemy of himself.
Right. It's tough because there are a lot of factors at play in this evaluation. But yeah, he seemed to click all the boxes one way or the other. Plus humiliation. I mean, humiliation is a big part of this.
For his wife and Huma. Oh, my God. It was awful.
Bradley Cooper is hanging with Huma now. You know that, right?
Ooh,
no,
I
really?
didn't know
Oh, yeah.
that.
Oh,
Look
yeah,
at
they're
you,
an item.
celebrity news.
Yeah, a little something. Yeah.
I love Bradley Cooper, but this whole thing about regular people going out with people just because they're famous and
It's so you understand it. Famous people date famous people because you understand that life. I don't think I could date somebody famous.
And because they're
I
more
wouldn't
attractive than
understand
us. That's the issue.
Yeah, Chris
can
is
date
right.
anybody.
Speak for yourself. I'm
Yeah.
hot.
Maybe not
Yeah.
physically always attractive, but yes, the shimmer of celebrity does work. I wish I had more of it, Chip. I can't. It's just the way that the quarterback on the football team gets the cheerleader. You know what I mean? It's really it's a story as old as time itself.
He also gets sacked and later on has severe
I see.
issues. All right, number 4, Kevin Spacey, Fall from Grace.
Oh yeah.
He's still falling. He's still falling.
That's
And
an
you know what's
abject
weird?
career fail. I mean, just to where it just right.
And he's so talented. I like him
That's
as an
why.
actor, but
Sure.
God, yeah.
But I still question some of the complaints against him because the first one seemed pretty bogus. Because that was the kid was like 18. Yeah, and it was in a bar, and I don't know. Maybe I look at the whole gay thing as different than I do men and women in the power situation. I forget who said this. I think it was a comedian was talking about how do you know when somebody's gay, who is the most effeminate and who is the male role? They wanted to get rid of husband and wife, and this comedian said, I think it might have been Bill Burr, and he goes, oh, Chappelle said it. He goes, so of course it's Chappelle, and he said, well, no, here's how you tell the difference is the wife is the one who's more gay, right? And no, I don't know what that means. What are you laughing for? Is that inappropriate?
I don't know what even more gay means, but okay.
There's a Louis C.K. joke on there. All right, number 3.
Joke hour? What is this?
What?
I don't get it.
What?
I don't get the joke.
I didn't make a joke. I was just trying to get to the bottom of something.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I can't get in trouble here. It's the internet, right?
He's coming off of Slayton, who is the pitbull of comedy. So Chip is unleashed right now.
I did not go there. Anyway, all right. Number 3 is the only woman on my list, Roseanne Barr.
Yeah, but I don't think that her fall's fair. I will maintain that completely. I don't think that her fall from grace was fair.
Well, she said some pretty crazy shit.
She did. So have a lot of people. I think that there was a huge reaction to and I didn't agree with anything that she said, but I think that killing off her character on her namesake show was huge. And I don't think that was
because of her support for Trump. Is that why they did it?
And she was saying so. She called that politician. I didn't know she was black. That was the whole thing that got her.
Oh, right. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
That was the thing. And I don't know.
Okay. My number 1 and number 2, I know, are going to be very controversial. Number 2 is Bill Cosby. I know Chris thinks he should be number 1.
No, that's number 1. Bill Cosby is number 1.
I'll say number 1 or number 2. Yeah, but I want to know who number 1 is.
Yeah,
on your
exactly.
list.
Me too.
Well, this is number 1, and I think it's pretty. I think. Well,
you believe this is on them, that you would have, that you guys have not delayed the interviewing, delayed the negotiations.
Yeah,
with Mr.
yes,
Mueller.
each time by 3 or 4 days, so we could write a letter in response. They have taken 2 to 3 weeks to get back to us. So what I have to tell you is, look, I'm not going to be rushed into having him testify so that he gets trapped into perjury. And when you tell me that, he should testify because he's going to tell the truth and he shouldn't worry, well, that's so silly because it's somebody's version of the truth, not the truth. He didn't have a conversation.
Truth is
about,
truth. I don't mean to go like.
No, it isn't truth. Truth isn't truth.
Come on, man. He was a presidential candidate.
I put Bill Cosby above Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, I'm with Nikki. It's Cosby. But you're right. That was a huge fall from Grace, and he was so well respected. Deservedly or not, America's mayor, but
I stand with the Jewish people.
As do I. I've got to go. Chip,
Bye, Mark.
Chris, great seeing you always too, man. Nice surprise. See you, Nick. Gotta do the show. Bye.
Go follow Mark's show. Starts right now on YouTube. Mark Thompson.
You always make him rush so much. You're so mean. You make him rush. He's all stressed out.
What are you talking about?
You're stressing him out. You gotta let him go.
I'm a wonderful person. I am.
You are.
I don't think I said anything wrong when I was talking about the whole.
You're saying somebody else's joke. That's all. That's all.
I have a lot of gay friends that I'm always.
You're sounding like I have a lot of black friends.
No,
You're like
no, I didn't
right
say
on the
that.
edge of that. You're right on the edge of that. Just let you know.
Stop. Anyway, but I'm always trying to figure out that, like
Nikki call you out.
Whatever. I know.
I'm so good at it, Chris. I'll just take care of it.
I love it.
All right, Chris Merrill, we got to get you your show and to join this cabal.
Yeah.
Do it. It's fun.
Yeah.
One of the most talented people I know.
From the basement. I'm going to have to work on my background because you guys look great and I look like, I'm in the basement. That's why. So, yeah.
But it sounds good now.
It could be a thing, though.
There's some setting on here, I suppose. Something of the sort.
All right. Well, I think it's time for us to move on. We are moving into our, I don't want to step on Mark's show too much. But thank you so much for being here, you guys. I appreciate it.
Good to see you, Chris. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks,
Nikki,
Bye.
12 o'clock. We'll see you on your show as well.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Hey.
Bye-bye. All right. Again, thanks to everybody for joining us. And tomorrow's show, we have Sherry Jacobus, who is a former Republican who now, again, like many people along the kind of the lines of Liz Cheney, she'll be with us. David K. Johnson will be with us. We will bring on, again, David Tice and talk about his documentary detailing the enormous threats to our power grid. We'll get that on the show tomorrow. And we really want to talk to him. And we'll come up with another top 10 list as well. I also I want to remind you guys, please subscribe to this. If you're still watching this, I really do appreciate it. It's simple. Just subscribe. Hit the little bell if you want to as well, and I'll let you know when we have something. I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody that was online to get your comments. I really do appreciate you making the comments. We do read them all if we don't get them all on air. Last thing I want to thank again, Steve Moskowitz, our sponsor, MoskowitzLLP.com, with tax attorneys. They're good. Not only are they amazing, but they're good friends of mine, and they've helped a lot of my friends in entertainment. My idiot friends who didn't file taxes for 5 or 6 years, and they thought the IRS was going to come and take their home, and they went to Moskowitz, and they went to the IRS for them. They just do a tremendous job. Again, it's MoskowitzLLP.com or 888-TAX-STEAL, 888-TAX-STEAL. Any question, call and ask for them. Again, Steve Moskowitz. So that's it for today. You can follow me on social at Chip Franklin on Twitter. But I will, again, ask you, please, to tell your friends and yourself, because that's the future of the show. It will be going through YouTube in this portal, to go on and subscribe to us. Okay. Well, I think that's just about it. Again, send me an email, chip@chipfranklin.com. Got any questions? You have a great day. We'll see you on the Friday edition. Thanks again.
I can handle things. I'm smart.
We shall overcome. Yes, we can.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
What the fuck is wrong with you?